Laura, could you tell me about the most challenging time you've experienced in your life?
So most recently, I've experienced the challenge of being diagnosed with ADHD. And it's only been diagnosed in the last couple of years. And I suppose the reason why I sought a diagnosis is because I saw things kind of popping up online. And I was ticking a lot of boxes. And I went into this online form and I ticked all the boxes, basically. So I went to my husband after I remember filling out the form and I said, God, I feel like I've, been living an alternative life, or a life that I didn't know that I was actually living, because I'm ticking all these boxes and I don't know where to go with it. So anyway, I went and got diagnosed, and I find it really hard to accept, because I thought of it as almost like a disability or like a mental illness. And I suppose maybe even though I'm a pharmacist and I have dealt with people all my life that have had mental illnesses or mental disorders or whatever way you might like to call it, it was hard to be on the receiving end of that.
Yeah.
And then, you'd look back in your life and think, actually, God, ADHD diagnosis now makes sense, because actually if I look back on the way I've lived my life, I've probably lived my life in a way that an ADHD woman who was masking ADHD lived. So that has been a challenge. So much so that actually I went and got a second diagnosis because I didn't really believe the first one. And then that psychiatrist said, yeah, raging ADHD, Laura. And, but there's nothing to be ashamed about. I do know that. And it's really important that people understand that. And it's really good now that I understand my own brain, and that my family understand my brain, and that my husband understands my brain, because I probably would have driven him crazy before, even just in terms of disorganization. When we started the business, not being able to just do simple tasks like answer really simple emails, I would have just left them, and that would have been something actually that followed me through from my career as a pharmacist as well. Like, I remember my area managers, there'd always be a new area manager every few years, and the first thing they'd say to me is, Laura, why don't you ever answer your emails? But I suppose I just see emails coming in and go, I'll answer them later, and then I'd forget about them. Yeah. But I kind of got away with it because I loved my patients and my customers, so I was really good at that end of the pharmacy.
Making up for it.
Yeah, I made up for it totally in that way. But yeah, so that has been a challenge to accept that, I suppose. And I did try the medication for it, the Concerta, and it didn't agree with me. I couldn't sleep on it. I find myself feeling a bit spaced on it. And I know there are other medications that you can try and to try and alleviate some of the symptoms, some of that like low level anxiety. But I have found that now that I understand my brain more, I just don't front load my calendar the way I used to. Like, I literally would have had 10 things to do in a day, only got through 3 of them, and then go to bed feeling really guilty that I haven't got it done. And if I was to look back on my life as an adult, I probably did deal with low level anxiety my whole life without realising it. And I never would have thought of myself as an anxious person. Like, me and anxiety would never have been in the same sentence, because I'm real happy. I had an amazing childhood. I had no trauma. You and I were just talking about the fact that sometimes, I was at a show once and I was listening to Tara Rafter talking about the trauma of her life and living with an alcoholic parent. And, you have people in the audience crying, and, they were relating to her trauma. And I'm like, Jesus, I nearly feel like I want some trauma, because I can't relate to any of this, like, I'm saying that flippantly. But yeah, so I don't know where I'm going with this now.
Well, it's something that I'd love to jump into there, Laura, as well, is because it's like a superpower and a kryptonite. Because I know you, I've been in your podcast, we've had conversations, and you are doing phenomenally well with business. We'll get into that soon. And I would say part of ADHD, or the symptoms that go with that, was your superpower in terms of pushing those areas in life. Like, even impulsivity, like, I've come from addiction. I probably could have easily been diagnosed with ADHD, but I think of impulsivity as functional impulsivity. It can be functional. I boldly do things that serve me certain purposes in life, but it brought me to hell in terms of addiction. So where was the kryptonite in terms of your ADHD? Like, it's obviously served you in certain ways, but you talk about anxiety, you talk about guilt. So is that what were the challenges that it brought you, I suppose?
So, for instance, I suppose the low level anxiety would have been that I could never sit still, and I still can't. I still find it very difficult to sit down and say watch a television program. So, for instance, I never watched ET as a kid. I never really watched television. I was always on the go and busy doing things, and I think that that's probably, looking back on it, exercise was my form of dopamine. But I always did really well in school. So I remember when I told Mum that I have it, Mum was like, but Laura, like, I feel now how did I not know that you didn't have it? Like, I feel guilty for not knowing that you didn't have it. And I said, well, I suppose it manifests in different ways, particularly in girls. So I did really well in school. I was always, but I wanted to get A's.
Yeah.
So I was like hyper focused on studying and getting A's. So nothing would have stopped me from doing that. So even my family would say that when I was studying, like, I have very sensitive ears, so they could not make any sound when I was studying for my Leaving Cert. And my sister even says, like, Laura, we used to walk around the house on tippy toes, and we thought that was normal until we started studying, and because I'm the eldest, and we realised actually you don't need absolute silence. So say, for instance, my bedroom where I was studying was above the television room, and they could only have the TV on 3. If it went to 4, I'd be banging down, like, terrible. I'll never forget storming down the stairs once because Dad had left the kitchen door open. I came storming into the kitchen, and my poor dad was like, oh, like, he looked frightened because I must have had this mad, angry look on my face going, keep the kitchen door closed, I've told you, because I can hear you talking. And then later in life in the pharmacy, like, I'd be in the dispensary and the girls would be down the other end of the shop, like my colleagues talking away, and I could hear their conversation, and I'd like shout down going, hey, what are you saying about that person? They're like, how the fuck did you hear that? Like, you can hear the grass grow. And that's a sign of like ADHD or a little bit of neurodiversity, is really sensitive hearing, or that sensitive, I don't know, some people have sensitive eyes, some people have sensitive ears, some people are sensitive to smell. I'm very sensitive to smell as well. I'm not sure if that's part of it. So yeah, so all of those things. And then the low level anxiety, I suppose, would have been, I could never sit still. So I remember moving into my brand new house when I was in my 20s with my, then boyfriend, now husband, and it was our first day in the house, and we were sitting down on a Sunday night watching TV, and I was like, okay, I have to go and call into Mum and Dad. And he's like, why do you have to leave to call into Mum and Dad? I said, I just have to. He's like, would you sit the fuck down for once and watch a bit of TV with me, So yeah, so interesting. And then and he'd even say that when I had the babies, so I have 3 sons, and I wanted to breastfeed them, and nothing would stop me exclusively breastfeeding them. I would do it until I was literally dead on the floor. And it probably affected our marriage in a way as well, our relationship, because I was obsessed with the fact that they had to be fed by the boob for the 6 months. Now, I didn't make it at 6 months. I had to give them solids by 5 months because there were 3 big lads. But I was convinced that if they got formula, that I had failed them as a mother, which is absolutely not true, and no mother should feel like that. But if I did something, I was just totally hyper focused on it. So he would say, actually, now that we think about it, Laura, you were totally hyper focused on the breastfeeding, or totally hyper focused on the babies, or I've probably always had something to be hyper focused on, and now it's the business.
Do you know what screams at me as well, Laura? I can relate to so much of that. Like, I have those compulsions in terms of it used to be compulsions to do drugs, but now it's like, if I say I'm going to exercise that way, I have to do it that way. If I say I'm going to do that with the business, I have to do it that way. And I could be sitting there and thinking about something. We could be watching telly, but I say, no, I said I have to do that, so I have to do that. And it's like perfectionism, compulsions, as you mentioned there, low level anxiety, if that's not happening, not being able to sit easy with yourself.
Poor timekeeping as well. Like, awfully poor timekeeping, to the point that, say, I would try and squeeze. So before I come over to you today, I was trying to squeeze a yoga session in, even though I should have started at half an hour beforehand. I didn't. I was trying to squeeze something else in.
Yeah.
So I was looking at the clock going, okay, I'm just going to get this done. So then I'm always like trying to squeeze as much into the hour that I can. And then I'll end up being a little bit late, or I'll end up feeling guilty that I'm late. And then but I can't change that.
Yeah.
It's very strange. And it's not that I think that my time's more important than yours, because I know that people that are perpetually late, other people will say, oh, well, they think they're more important than I am. That's a meme that goes around. But it's just that I just have no concept of that actually it's going to take me X amount of time to do this. I should really just have a cup of tea and sit on the couch and then leisurely make my way across town to Brian.
But a cup of tea, right? And this is where I struggle. I wonder if it comes from you as well. A cup of tea, me sitting on the couch with a cup of tea is like, right, but I won't get that done. It's like competitiveness. It's overachieving. And you said that about getting the A's, and you changed the norms in the house. This is the norms that everyone has to be quiet because I am trying to achieve something here. So is there an achievement thing with yourself where you're trying to be, you're obsessed, you're trying to achieve, but you're trying to get somewhere? Is there something in that?